This is Red Dog Terrain. Welcome back to the shed. Today we're building the Arch of the Golden Sun. Over my lifetime, I couldn't tell you which board game I've played the most, but in probably the last 4 or 5 years, it's definitely be Return to Dark Tower. Me and my friends, especially Sunday D&D group, have played this numerous times. And when we started playing, I saw the monument of the Arch of the Golden Sun and knew that, yeah, I was gonna have to build it. But before I get to that, I did a little market fair, a little tiny con here in Baton Rouge at the Little Wars game store. And a lot of people asked a lot of questions, which was great, and it was wonderful meeting all these people. But one of the questions I got often that I had a lot of trouble answering was how long it took me to build this. I remember there was one lady who bought a piece that I had done, and she said, well, I want to know a little bit more. How long did it take you? And I was like, I don't know, 3 weeks. And she's like, you worked on this for 3 weeks nonstop? I was like, oh, that's what you meant? I have no idea. So when I started building the Arch of the Golden Sun, we had just finished redecorating the living room, and there was this clock that we just weren't going to have up anymore. And I thought, oh well, this is the perfect opportunity to figure out how long does it take me to build these. So I tried my best to keep the clock and all the shots and tabulate. I had a little piece of paper on the side of me every time I'd go into the shed and start and finish or do something, and try and figure out how long it was going to take me to build all this. Now this clock and this time doesn't include drawing times and things like that. And drawing times probably takes up almost as much time as the building parts of it do. I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah. So when I finally tabulated all of the hours that I spent actually in the shed, cutting and building and sanding and doing all that, I was surprised at how quickly it took me. Now, this piece, the Arch of the Golden Sun, it didn't have a whole lot of detail work. I wasn't cutting a whole bunch of tiny little boards and having to texture and sand each individual one and measure a whole lot of angles and stuff. So this is, though it's really big and it looks cool and it's got a lot of texture and stuff to it, it's not very detailed. It doesn't have a whole lot of little pieces, time consuming things. So maybe that's why it didn't take us as long. I think maybe the next time I do like a real ornate, fancy, intricate piece, I might try and do this again and just see how long it does take me to do something, do a build like that. So at this point I'm 3 hours in, and so far all I've done is I cut a 12-inch circle out of foam with a beveled edge. I got a little rim on there, and I cut a base using the part that I messed up earlier on to make a base, and then I cut a cardboard tube, a thick cardboard tube, as the pillar part of it. This is that same floral foam that I used for the Tuskar Village, I think like 2 videos back. It works so great to make these big tusk or bones and protrusions, so I kept going with it. When I started building this that morning, I didn't have the actual miniature, so all I had was one picture that I was using as a reference photo. So I did take some liberties with this. It's not an exact replica, obviously. I did want to make it to where it was not just an homage or a resemblance of the piece that I was basing it off of, but also something that could be playable. I would hate to build this big thing and it just be like, oh, that's a pretty thing, and we could never play on it. And then I broke my hot glue gun. This hot glue gun had been struggling for a while now. So right in the middle of this, I ran to the craft store and got another one. But now armed with a new, actually pretty good, is a good hot glue gun. I started making the steps. I cut them in these quadrangle trapezoids. I cut a whole bunch of trapezoids to make the steps. And I had intentionally made it thought to kind of clean the edges of it so that when it was curving around down to the bottom, you wouldn't have the pokey bits. It would be more smooth. But I realized that I liked it like that, as though this was more haphazardly put together. That they just had these stones in this certain kind of manner, and that's what they were going to use, and that was it. There was a big time jump from this part to the next, just because it was a very fiddly part where I was trying to build up enough foam underneath to support the stairs, and also to get them to go to fit right, and to have the right curve, and it was hard to film that and concentrate on having good shots, and also make this all work and be a part. But eventually, I had a working staircase. I used the good XPS foam to make some columns to support the steps as it was going up, and then started filling in the gaps between it with aluminum foil, but realized that I was quickly running out of aluminum foil. I had bought 2 entire rolls of aluminum foil. It was gonna run out very soon, and then remembered that I had that not so good bubble insulation foam that comes in packaging stuff. This stuff it's not very good for much as far as like carving and building and doing texture and stuff, but it is great for just stuffing in between the good stuff and making columns and supports. And eventually I had enough to where the stairs were working and functional and stayed up. With that aluminum foil, I started texturing the ground and textured. I probably textured too much, because a lot of this ends up getting covered up with aluminum foil later, and then it's a bunch of crustard. But the next part of this build is kind of chaotic. I knew I had to fill in all the gaps, and I've seen other YouTubers do this, where they just take aluminum foil and they just kind of crunch it up and stuff it in there and hot glue everything together, and it works really well. You can manipulate the aluminum foil to fill in the gaps and make all sorts of texture and outcroppings and stuff like that. I think I'm going to use this more often if I need something like this. If I need to build up a texture or make a rock or a crevice, a cliff, something like that. As I cover everything in the secret sauce, I want to thank the band Aya for the use of their music in all of my videos. This song is Sentado en la borde de una pregunta and Raju. I made a batch of crustard, which is a term that I definitely stole from Bill Making Stuff, and in no way is my own idea, though someone tried to give me credit for it. It's just paint, glue, sand, and grout, and kind of made this like I would describe it as runny peanut butter, and it's a great way to just cover things in a very quick and easy texture. It's a total mess, and I would definitely, if you do this, definitely put a base coat down, because parts will fall off. It'll kind of crumble and stuff like that. Put more glue than you think. It helps. The Arch of the Golden Sun was crafted by the archrites of the old. Countless lives were spent forging the massive arch and dais. Untold hours of masonry, building stairs to reach the zenith. Back then, the story said that walking through the arch would bless the tools and instill the pilgrim with virtue. Blessings were abound for those who gave of their labor. However, stories faded, and the arch fell into ruin, and people lost faith. Bringing this monument back to its former glory would surely be a powerful tool against the adversary. I painted the ground in browns and tans and reds and grays and stuff, and then painted the arch and the dais in yellow. And I had to put 3 coats of yellow on it, and then went over it with this the metallic paint. People complain about metallic paints, and I don't really understand why, but maybe that's just because I'm not a very good painter. Well, I put a black wash on everything. I want to give a shout out to my friend Josh, who came over for the weekend and helped me fix up the shed. We did a bunch of repairs on it, and I appreciate it, Josh. Thanks. After the black wash, everything gets a dry brush to bring out the highlights. And if you made it this far, please give me a like, a subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of the video. Tell me how you think I'm doing. I've had people ask me, hey, I want to leave a comment. I don't know what to say. How about this time? You tell me, what month were you born in? Are you a December baby like me? Were you in June, July, October? When were you born? Just the day, just the month. Last thing I did was a very light black wash over the gold parts, and then I wiped away most of it. I'm going to be quiet and let the music play as we go to the final shots. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.